Hey guys, Jake Brown here for Roto Curve, bringing you some NFL Week 3 underpriced plays on some of the smaller sites. I want to apologize in advance if this video lags out in the middle of it. I was trying to make a few videos for something else earlier and was having some issues, so I'm just going to jump into screen sharing and hope that solves the problem. Just bear with me for a moment. All right, so what I did this week, I wanted to change it up. I got a couple messages from people that were mostly positive, but just requesting that there were a value play for every position on each of these sites we look at. So I took it a step further, and I just filled out an entire roster, all of players who I thought were undervalued. Most of the case, it'll leave you with tons of salary left, as these are just all guys who I think are underpriced for the site. So without further ado, let's jump into Fantasy Aces. You can see my lineup here on the right. And not my lineup, sorry. I should rephrase a lineup of all guys I think are undervalued on this site and underpriced. Starting at quarterback, just to refamiliarize yourself with some of the scoring system, or not scoring systems, the pricing here. You got Tom Brady as the top quarterback at 7.5. You have Russell Westbrook grading out as the 9th priced quarterback, which I think is the lowest on any single site, and it's a significant drop off from that top tier, which isn't quite the same elsewhere. So I really like him for the price here, and Cam Newton as well. Again, remember with Fantasy Aces, you don't have so much difference between the prices. So someone who's, the 10th ranked quarterback, let's say Matthew Stafford, is $50 more than the 11th, is $100 more than the 12th, and so on. You do have little gaps, and that's one I targeted with Cam Newton, where it's an $150 drop. But I like Cam Newton this week, and I think that those two quarterbacks are pretty underpriced on here. Running back's a bit tougher because you don't have such a high price. They do have Le'Veon Bell correctly priced at the highest running back. On some sites where he's not, that's where I'm looking to get him. He probably won't be the same price as everyone else. He might be that next tier running back like last year if he performs. But as you see, once you go down, let's say 10 running backs, you get down to Carlos Hyde, and you're looking at, $1,450, which is, roughly 25% of Carlos Hyde's cost. It's not as extreme as on some other sites. So there's a lot more to think about with running back here. That being said, I still did go with the value plays of Danny Woodhead and Devonta Freeman, because looking around where they are, and actually, sorry, and CJ Anderson, I should throw in at the flex. CJ Anderson, this is the only site where he's priced the same as, a James Starks, $50 more than a Danny Woodhead, 1 unit, and less than Ingram, less than Joseph Randle. So if you have a good feeling about CJ Anderson this week, this is where you want to play him. And I do just like the value running backs again. Like I said, Danny Woodhead and Devonta Freeman. I don't really like anyone that's in between them or any of the guys that trail them for the most part. So if you're looking to save money on running back, that's where I would go. Shifting over to wide receiver, have Brandon Marshall and Amari Cooper. Again, it's a relation to where they're priced against certain people. Looking at Amari Cooper and the people who are above him on most other sites, non-PPR, he's priced up a bit. Brandon Marshall significantly priced up. I mean, not significantly on other sites, and we'll get to that, but compared to some of the guys he's around, he shouldn't be the same price as Terrence Williams. Fitzgerald's a nice play as well. I just like Marshall more, and there's only room for so many. I threw in a very cheap wide receiver if you're really looking to save money, and Darius Hayward-Bay. Matavius Bryant still has a suspension. Hayward-Bay's looked to become the number 2 over Marcus Wheaton, who's just a god-awful football player. So, yeah, that's where I'm going with some value there. Tight end, you can laugh all you want with Gronk, but the fact is, min price on Fantasy Aces, which there isn't really, an overly playable guy anywhere near that, is 3,000. Gronk is not even twice min price, and if you want to look at the first guy you'd really probably be considering on the week, and we'll look at on other sites, Jared Cook's 4,250. So, you're not paying a premium for Gronk on this site. So I just, it's auto owned for me until he's significantly higher or until there are value tight ends lower. And the same as we'll go through the sites with the Seattle defense. If they're not the number 1 defense in terms of price on a site, you have to take them, in my opinion. And if they are number 1 and it's not by a big difference like here where they're just 100 more, that's who I'm going with. So to recap, the value plays on Fantasy Aces I was looking at are Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Danny Woodhead, Devonta Freeman, Brandon Marshall, Amari Cooper, Gronkowski, CJ Anderson, Darius Hayward-Bay, and the Seahawks. So we'll move on to fantasy draft. Again, same thing. Here I actually selected Ryan Fitzpatrick against my own Philadelphia Eagles at quarterback. When we're scrolling down to where his price is at 10.5, it's the cheapest quarterback out there, not named Luke McCown. He's going to be min price everywhere, who I will not be playing really anywhere. And he's only $100 more than Foles. It's not the case that he's going to come in as the third cheapest quarterback on any site. So with the matchup in mind, so I just think he's severely underpriced. Moving over to running back, Dion Lewis. I know there's a little bit of confusion about what his role is going to be going forward, and Bill Belichick's shuffling of running backs, but the price here is just way too low. You will not find him for less than every other starting running back this week anywhere. And he's even with Chris Johnson. And if you looking on the left, I don't see any starting running backs that are cheaper than him, and he's performed. So it's an absurd price for him. Some of the other guys I mentioned, last time around on the other side were Woodhead and Devonta Freeman. When you look at them on here and on other sites, they come in right around the same 85. They're actually more expensive than Dion Lewis, which you won't find. So here, Dion Lewis fantasy draft, lock him up. I also put in Lesean Mccoy, who I'm not a huge personal fan of, though it does occur at his price that there's a significant price break for running backs. He's right around C.J. Anderson price. And DeMarco Murray questionable, Arian Foster out, Eddie Lacy questionable. All the other healthy running backs above him are significantly more expensive at $1,400 or $14,000, and he's 11.7. So I like the value. Not really confident in that pick, but I think looking at his percentage owned, it would be a very good GPP pick wherever you play him. And here with the pricing being a little bit lower, I will have him in a couple lineups. Moving over to wide receiver. Started with Brandon Marshall, who will be a high-owned play on every site, but when you just see who he's priced with here, it's just a little bit lower. He's below T.Y. Hilton, below Keenan Allen, below Amari Cooper, and right even with Steve Smith. Fitzgerald, again, he'll find himself around that Brandon Marshall place, and if you need a swerve, he might be your guy over Brandon Marshall for ownership reasons, but the price is just too soft. I think Brandon Marshall should be priced more than Jarvis Landry. Again, this is a PPR site full, so I'm recommending Jarvis Landry as I will for almost every PPR site. Where he's cheaper than guys who aren't as threatening to catch a lot of balls. Here's where I do select Jared Cook as the tight end value. You scroll down to some of the pricing around him. He's 6,600. You won't find any starters. So while Jared Cook is a popular play across the industry for his cheap price, this is a site where Rob Gronkowski is 14.4. That's more than 200% of Jared Cook. So this is not a site that I will be auto-playing Gronk, though you still got to own him pretty much anywhere in cash if you can afford it. The two flex positions I threw in here, again, running back a little harder to find value than wide receiver. I used Darius Hayward-Bay again as he's severely low price. I won't say underpriced, but just, he's less than Cole Beasley when you're talking about, an opportunistic play who really isn't going to get the targets. And with Hayward-Bay ascending and Wheaton descending down that chart, I just like to play for the price. And Allen Robinson, who, burned a lot of us week one with that injury, so we stayed off him. And then those who had the balls to take him, singing all the way to the bank. So in general, this is a game script. I think people are going to be comfortable thinking Jacksonville is going to be throwing the ball. I don't know that they're going to make any effort to shut down Allen Robinson in particular. But this is a site where if you look at the other wide receivers around the price, you're looking at Terrence Williams, Marquez Colston, Anquan Bolden. And Moncrief's an interesting play, but I think Allen Robinson's easily the safest and may have the safest floor and ceiling. But like I mentioned earlier, Seahawks, the most expensive D, it's by $100. There is a significant drop off. Not a significant. There is a sizable drop off of $400 from them to number 3, but it's not sizable enough with any other defenses that I'm considering to really say that you should be playing the Jets or Carolina over Seattle for that $500 difference. On, we'll move over to Fantasy Feud next. Maybe we will. Let's see. Oh, that was unfortunate. Huh. Well, let's just recreate it on the fly. You can rewind that and we'll figure it out. But here, I'll just work right through with you guys right now. So pick a random contest to join. And go through some positions. So, And you'll also see how I kind of do it. We have the names that we know are pretty comfortable and chalky for the week. So I kind of just try to scroll down to a point where I see a bunch of them. I see Danny Woodhead here. I see Dion Lewis. I don't see Devonta, so I'm going to search for him a little bit. And, sure enough, he comes in at a significant discount on this site. So I would recommend using Devonta Freeman on Fantasy Feud. Again, this is a site where if Eddie Lacy's out, James Starks hasn't been priced up. On some of the other sites that I've shown you so far, he has been, as if he was going to get 50-50 or more of the snaps already, and we want the sites that weren't anticipating that. So Starks is the play on here. And looking further down, I don't believe I came across any other quality running backs in this load tier. We'll switch over to tight end. I believe this was the site where you're going to want to play Jared Cook. Comes in at 47.50, 47,500, I should say. That's below everyone. And on this site, it's actually significantly below pretty much anyone you'd want to play. Keep in mind, 47.50 here. We're scrolling up. Ebron, someone who I've seen a little bit, but that's 15 grand, so it's 30, roughly a third more of the price. So yeah, I think this is a site where you want to play Jared Cook. And not really worry about it. If you want to play another tight end and you find one, you can do that. But for that price of 47.5, you won't get anyone else on this site at that price who may have the opportunities that Cook has in this game. Switching over to wide receiver. I actually like Jeremy Maclin a little bit on this site. Looking at the pricing. And if you want to gamble, you got Mike Evans in here at a mid to lower tier of receiver with some quality guys, but no one with his upside if this is going to be the week he reclaims the role and steps up and gets targets and is fully healthy. So it's a guy I would be targeting there. Defense. So this is the first site that, challenges me on defense because they have Seattle significantly priced up over everybody else. They also have Carolina in there at number 3, who's my second favorite defense of the week. Now, I don't see the Jets up here, so that's who I'm looking for. Sorry, Eagles, you guys, you don't look put together whatsoever. The Jets look pretty dominant. They're coming home. It'd be a good spot for them, and the price here puts them in the bottom, bottom half of the league in defense. When on most sites they're in the top 5. So the Jets defense on here, I'll swerve from Seattle. We get to quarterback, and there is a significant drop-off here at quarterback, despite the fact that this site usually has very close fields. There is a big jump to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, so if you can afford them based on how your lineup's looking, I like Brady the most of any quarterback this week, but won't be considering them underpriced plays for our purposes. First guy I came across was Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's priced below Nick Foles. He's not really priced above anyone who's going to start. We can go down to find McCown areas at 90,000. If you want to play the min-price QB of the week, I'm not comfortable with the play. And with injuries, you have a couple other guys out as well. So what I'll be looking at primarily is to try to save some money and not spend up at that top spot that's going to cost me the ability to have to punt a full position. But a guy like Andy Dalton, shouldn't be priced where he is in the general scheme, but you're saving $5,000 on a play like Sam Bradford. So you're actually less than Fitzpatrick, who's someone who I would be considering on this site as well. So Andy Dalton, I think, is my favorite price relief option at quarterback on Fantasy Feud. And looking at this again, I'll probably slap myself afterwards when I replay the tape and see that I had someone else slotted in. But for now, spur of the moment, we'll stick with Nick Foles because I like the game script there. I think that they'll be, overused word, but I think they'll be throwing the ball a lot. Should be a good game. And I think that Nick Foles is just being underpriced consistently and the spot for him. But in my opinion, I will not be doing something like playing Foles and Dalton. I think there is enough relief with your Jared Cook play, which is something that I'll be kind of using alongside the Giants to really guarantee me some extra money. I'll probably go Dalton and one of the upper guys. Might fade one of these guys and try to find either Russell Wilson or Cam Newton as my second quarterback. But I'll put Nick Foles up here. Not 100% confident in that. And just the fact that Andy Dalton is less Andy Dalton is so far my #1 quarterback for the price on this site for the slate. So put Foles in there to fill some space. And then the other thing I looked at was tight end. If you play Jared Cook, you're playing him for a salary relief play being half the price of some middle to upper tier flex position. So if you can find another tight end you like for the price, compared to some of these receivers, 96 grand for Macklin, 95 for Mike Evans, and you're looking at, you can get some relief going double tight end if you want to play Heath Miller alongside Jared Cook in the same game. Tyler Eifert's still under 100K, but the relation to Gronk on him makes me not want to play pretty much anyone in this upper tier. Again, Gronk, if you can afford him, you can play him, but at least on this site where he's $145,000, you're looking at him being basically the third priced receiver on this slate. I wouldn't argue against him always being, the one of the 10 best receivers on the slate, but I think top 3 is pushing it for your tight end position where you can really get some relief. So going with another tight end, if you fade Gronk, you can actually, look here at the salary remaining. So some cash relief options built in. They have decently priced some of the middle upper tier guys on the site, though I do think they overpriced their running backs a little bit. As you see, I know it's half PPR, but still, I think a guy like Julian Edelman is probably a better play than a Lesean McCoy, even in a half PPR, being that they both benefit from pass catching. I'll just make up my mind. Here we go. I'm going to try to make up my mind. Someone's just going to jump out at me. I know it. I know I'm missing them. Let John Brown hold the spot for a moment. Let's see how someone else jump out. Yeah, maybe Doug Baldwin. But again, I apologize. As you saw, I refreshed and it cleared the original lineup, but this is somewhat similar to what it was. But I'll show you actually, since there is so much money left over, and I told you that I wasn't overly confident with a few of these plays, just a quick way to turn it into something that looks a little bit nicer. And again, as I just put Le'Veon Bell in the lineup, he is not the most expensive running back. He has a decent shot at being the most expensive running back the rest of the way. But in this lineup, actually, yeah, I think if you want to, load up on these, all 4 before Marshawn Lynch, randomly was questionable. All 4 of those top price running backs are in good matchups. So this may be a week to try to include them over some receivers and some flexes if you feel the spots. But just looking over your left now, we're looking at a lineup that doesn't look hideous. If we want to jump back in, we can throw another flex in, not play the 2 tight ends. Oops, starting to lag. Let's see. Yeah, you can take Allen Robinson there. This looks a little prettier. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to play this. I probably won't settle on this, but I hope this was a little bit helpful in identifying those plays. Again, Jared Cook, such a relief on this price, or on this site rather. And the Giants, again, remind you that they actually have Seattle priced up to 74K. The Giants are 51K. So you're looking at a little over 20% increase, which is more than on most of the other sites. Again, Mike Evans, zero fantasy points per game. You're going to get a lot of people just not considering him, but his cost, if he produces, will always be above 100K for the rest of the season. And I'm actually not huge on Devonta this week, but the price compared to the other guys who are the tough considerations when you're looking at other sites and they're all priced within 100 or 200 bucks of each other, he's just significantly lower here. So this is what I've come up with on Fantasy Feud. And finally, we'll finish off with Stars Draft. Okay. So here on Stars Draft, you'll notice they have a different ranking of their quarterbacks a little bit than most of the sites. For most, it was Brady and Rodgers and Roethlisberger and Russell, and then 4 or 5 missed, changed it up a little bit. But here you have Cam jumping to number 2. More importantly, you have Russell Wilson just falling. We'll count it off: 5, 10, tied for 11th. Again, just too soft for his price for what he could do this week. Danny Woodhead is just 3,500, less than these other guys. Same with Dion Lewis at 36. I included Devonta because I want you to see his price. And these two guys I like more than him, and they're cheaper. So here, for confusion's sake, we'll do that. But Mr. Freeman at 4K is also a great play. On this site, Heath Miller and Jared Cook are only $100 apart. So if you want to swerve off of Cook, who will be incredibly high owned, you can go to Heath Miller for 100 more. On most other sites, it's a slight uptick in the percentage. He is more. Brandon Marshall is the most underpriced receiver and might be the most underpriced player on this slate, other than those two running backs of Woodhead and Dion. He's 4,600 at wide receiver, which again, we'll take a look at the area he's fallen in. He's fallen in even with Jeremy Maclin, below Golden Tate, below Steve Smith, below Andre Johnson. Absurd. Lock him in there. Cash GPP. So again, you don't have to lock anyone in there for a GPP. He will be highly owned in every format, but he's just very, very inexpensive for what his production should be, floor and ceiling. And again, Jarvis Landry probably shouldn't be more than Brandon Marshall, and a significant amount more. But again, still a good play. These receivers are just underpriced. When you get up to Jarvis Landry, the names between him and Brandon Marshall, the ones I just recited, that I'm not overly excited about playing. So he's still less than a couple other guys who are nice plays this week, and less than a guy like T.Y. Hilton and Amari Cooper, who I think he should be more even with or above. So Jarvis made it into this as well, as did Larry Fitzgerald. I guess I took that entire tier of 46 to 5,000 receivers. And looking at it, I don't think you can really argue that there's anyone else in that price range, from Devontae Adams up to Andre Johnson. Those are the 3 guys you're going to want to play, and they're not the most expensive. So like them a lot. And again, this might be the worst site for defense, because the Seattle Seahawks, and maybe we're all just going to get it wrong, and the highest owned defense will bomb, but they're actually priced 3rd, and the Texans are priced a significant amount more than them, more than 10% more. So just interesting decision. Very, very soft on this site in general, but I also feel that they just have some extreme value. So for cash, while I think that 10-9 left remaining, obviously you're not leaving it at this. Devonta would be the guy I'd remove, and then either Jarvis or Fitzgerald to go up. You can even remove Heath Miller and say, we're playing Gronk, because why not? And then you can, if you make it the ultimate lineup, you want to just throw Gronk and Antonio Brown in there. You still have too much money left with Fitz, and as I'm peering over at this lineup, this lineup kind of just looks too good to be true, and that's what you're going to get on Stars Draft. So there's actually, looking at this, I'll admit, we can all have the same lineup. I will probably play this lineup that you're looking at right now in cash games. Russell Wilson, Danny Woodhead, Dion Lewis, Brandon Marshall, Jarvis Landry, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, Jamal Charles, the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think any of them. I think every single player on there, and I don't usually look around the industry too much before doing these videos, but I would imagine most people are talking about every name on that list. So to be able to get every name on a target list in your lineup, I think it's too soft, and maybe people won't notice some of these lower plays like Woodhead, Lewis, Marshall will be noticed. But if those running backs can be missed by a few people, perhaps there'll be some variance among lineups. But I just think that at this stage, week 3, if you're playing and you're on a second-tier site, you know what you're doing. So I think something like this should be a very popular lineup, and feel free. I will, as soon as this is done, I'll go on to Draft Pot. Check that out. Pose some questions for you guys. You did a great job last week, in the forums, suggesting some players. Again, one thing I mentioned that week, and it just happened to work out with Tyrod and Manziel both being top scoring quarterbacks, but that FPPG being the scoring model, if you can find some guy that's a third of the price of other starters at quarterback, or at receiver 1 or running back 1 on their team, you got to play them. That kind of differential doesn't exist elsewhere. And it just allows you to take advantage. But again, give you a shot right in the forums. Hope this was helpful, and have a great day. Best of luck.